It's no surprise that Lane Kiffin fired a salvo ahead of Oklahoma versus Ole Miss, but my man was way out of line.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase over at Game Time. I'm John Williams of Sooners Wire and USA Today Sports. And on today's show, we're going to talk about taking a little trip to Trinidad in the third segment, some midseason breakout players, guys that have had huge starts to their season, and maybe a little bit of surprise, guys that we need to see break out over the next 6 or 5 games and hopefully pushing Oklahoma towards a SEC championship game or a college football playoff berth. But we got to start here because during Lane Kiffin's Monday press conference, he was asked about Oklahoma's defense, and here's what he had to say. And I quote, "Well, I think that's two-part," Kiffin said. "One, it's a phenomenal prep, film study of signals. I mean, you know how it is. I'll just tell you how it is. I think they do a great job of that. So if you study people really well, you know tendencies, and then you have enough confidence as a coach to go after those. That's what Venables does. It seems like they've got a really good bead on the plays that are coming when they're called, and they do a great job of going and taking those away." He continued, "You look at the Auburn game. I told Hugh Freeze after their game watching it, I mean, you might want to switch your signals. It looks like they have the plays. The middle safety's running down to steal slants, which is very abnormal." In a way, Lane Kiffin basically said that Oklahoma is sign stealing in the Lane Kiffin way that he says it. He wouldn't go out of his way to say, "I'll tell you how it is," if he wasn't lobbing an accusation at Oklahoma's coaching staff, Brent Venables in particular. And I find it really funny that a guy like Lane Kiffin, who's had not just one, but 2 rules created out of things that he's done to try and gain a competitive advantage, that he would fire a shot at a coach trying to gain a competitive advantage. All of the hubbub about the Auburn game where Isaiah Sategna scored on the deception substitution, I used air quotes for those of you listening, that comes from a play very similar to something that Lane Kiffin ran at Ole Miss several years ago. Our guy Stephen Willis pointed this out in our Locked On SEC group chat not long after the Oklahoma-Auburn game. A rule was put in place that said you couldn't use the substitution period or substitution opportunity to deceive the opponent. We're not going to relitigate everything that happened in the Oklahoma-Auburn game. Just wanted to point that out, that Lane Kiffin also used a similar play years ago, and that's where the SEC rule against it came to be. The second one was initiated this year after there's been so much drama and confusion and consternation about guys feigning injuries or faking injuries to slow down up-tempo offenses. Most notably, the head coach that's come under fire the most for feigning injuries to slow down up-tempo offenses is Lane Kiffin. It's Ole Miss. Many people, when this rule was enacted, the SEC college football attempted to enact a rule that would help deter some of the faking injuries, the feigning injuries. A lot of outlets called it the Lane Kiffin rule. So my dude, it's fine if you want to, lob these accusations about quote unquote, He didn't say sign stealing, but that's what he's alluding to. Just understand, you're not necessarily coming from a place of moral authority on competitive advantages and attempting to deceive or take advantage of loopholes to gain a competitive advantage. So miss me with all that, because you're very much one of those guys that's out there trying to find every single competitive advantage that you can. And again, the rules makers have curtailed multiple attempts by you to do so. And here's the other part of it. Here's the other thing.
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care. Let me tell you, we don't care. Jerry.
We don't care. Because here's the thing. Oklahoma's defense is just simply talented. From the front seven to the back, they are a talented unit. If Brent Venables and his coaching staff's film prep is so good that they're able to pick up on signals that the opposing offensive coordinators are using, then don't use signals. Huddle up, call a play. But here's the thing. That's not the biggest issue. The biggest issue that Ole Miss is going to face this week is a talented defense that can absolutely get after the quarterback with their front four. They're great at stopping the run with their front seven. They are a really good defense. Now, he did go on to say that they're probably the best defense that they faced this year. And I think that that's true. This is going to be the best defense that a lot of teams face this year because it's one of the best defenses in college football. It's one of the best defenses in the SEC. So Lane Kiffin can fire all the shots he wants. He can try to distract people from talking about, will he go to Florida? Is Florida a potential landing spot? Is Lane Kiffin a potential target for the Florida job? He could use all this other misdirection and all this other stuff to try and distract people from the Florida conversation. But the Florida conversation is going to be a conversation until it's not. Until they either hire somebody or Lane Kiffin come out and directly says, I am not taking the Florida job, a la Lincoln Riley and LSU years ago. So you can use all the misdirection you want. You can try to point fingers at Brent Venables, but really what it comes down to is you're scared. You know that your offense is going to be put to the test, that your quarterback, your run game are going to feel the heat from an Oklahoma defense that is just getting after quarterbacks, getting after running games. I mean, they allowed less than 2 yards per carry against South Carolina, sacked Lenora Sellers 6 times, 13 tackles for loss. Trinidad Chambliss, he's a great runner. He's not going to be breaking tackles like Lenora Sellers did. That's a reality. And you could talk to Q all you want about signs and whether or not Brent Venables had a beat on what those signs were. The reality was Auburn's offense just wasn't good. And Oklahoma made them pay in a lot of ways. Now, Ole Miss, you've got a great offense. You've put up a lot of numbers. You got some talented skill players, a talented quarterback, talented running game. Got all the respect in the world for what Lane Kiffin has put together on that side of the ball at Ole Miss. So don't mistake anything that I'm saying here as disrespect to that offense or that team, because that team is a good team. 100% it is. And it's not a good team because of, whatever deception they might try to pull. It's just a good football team. But Oklahoma is a good football team too. And that defense is a really good defense. And whether you're going to change up your signals or not, or use a huddle or not, try to throw Brent Venables off in the same way that Texas did or not, you're going to have to go up against some of the best defensive players in college football this Saturday in Norman. And you threw a shot at Oklahoma's head coach. I don't know if you've heard about Oklahoma versus the world, but you don't want to get Oklahoma versus the world. You don't want that coming against you. But at 11 a.m. on Saturday morning, inside Gaylord Family Oklahoma Memorial Stadium, you're going to feel Oklahoma versus the world. Because remember, you were losing at halftime in Oxford to one of the worst Oklahoma teams in the last 40 or 50 years. Certainly the worst Oklahoma team since 1998. You were losing at halftime to an Oklahoma Sooners team that could not score on anybody, could not block anybody, couldn't run on anybody, had a quarterback that could not throw to anybody, had receivers that couldn't get open enough for the quarterback to feel comfortable enough to throw the ball, and you were losing at halftime. So let's think about that before you start throwing shots at Oklahoma's head coach. Coming up, we're going to talk about some of those defensive players that have had breakout seasons thus far. Who needs to have breakout seasons over the final 5 games? We'll discuss all that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. Let's be honest, most of us can't even name all our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth. Between 401ks, savings, and investments, it's easy to lose track, and that can mean leaving money on the table. That's why I started using Monarch, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. It helps you organize your accounts, helps you see where you might be spending way too much money. If you're trying to save, it can help you plan your goals and better set you up for a financial future. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. We're also brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL and college football season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. Right now, the Oklahoma Sooners still sitting at a -4.5 point favorite over Ole Miss, which, again, kind of surprising a little bit, but listen, this is a really good defense, and Ole Miss just hasn't played a defense as good as Oklahoma's just yet. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started, again, over at FanDuel. Once again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Every season in college football, there has to be guys that have breakout seasons for you to be successful. We knew going into this year that for Oklahoma to have success, they needed R. Mason Thomas to have a good year and replicate what he did last year. Jaden Jaxson, Dominic Williams, same thing. Kip Lewis, Kobe McKinzie. Kip Lewis needed to repeat what he did last year. We needed to see, guys like John Mateer obviously play well. We needed to see an offensive line improve. We needed to see some wide receivers break out. So let's talk through guys that have had these breakout seasons over the first 7 games of the year. And to me, it starts with 2 guys on the defensive side of the ball, David Stone and Taylor Wein. David Stone, man, he's really come on strong, especially over the last 4 or 5 games. He's really picked up his production. Right now, he leads the Oklahoma Sooners in Pro Football Focus's stops metric with 20. And that's by just playing 211 snaps. Right now, he actually leads Oklahoma's defensive linemen in snaps with 211, just in front of Grayson Halton at 191 and Dominic Williams at 170. Jaden Jackson's back there at 158. Now remember, Dominic Williams, Jaden Jaxson, they sat out the Kent State game. So yes, but David Stone is having that breakout season right now. He's been fantastic. He's second on the team in total pressures, according to Pro Football Focus, with 17. And like I mentioned, the Pro Football Focus stop metric of 20, that takes into account down and distance. So if you have an unsuccessful first down because David Stone tackled you, that's considered a stop, even if you gain 1 or 2 yards. So takes into account some of the efficiency numbers, expected points added, that kind of thing. And David Stone is just absolutely playing dominant football. Was listening to Oklahoma Breakdown, and Gabe Eicher talked about David Stone might very well be the best defensive lineman in the country right now. If not now, then he's heading towards that. And it's hard to argue it. The dude is just playing phenomenally right now. And not to be outdone is Taylor Wein. Taylor Wein arguably made one of the plays of the game in that one. And I'm not talking about the interception. I'm talking about first quarter, South Carolina's first drive of the game. Lenora Sellers on 4th and goal, gets away from the pile a little bit. He gets put under pressure, gets crowded around, is able to slip through the massive humanity and looks like he's heading towards the end zone. He's got a free run. It's going to be really tough for anybody to stop his momentum. And then here comes Taylor Wein, disengages from the offensive lineman that was blocking him and is able to chase down Lenora Sellers and tackle him before he's able to get to the end zone. A huge play in that game, because if South Carolina scores, it's 7-7. And hey, listen, they're going to gain some confidence that they can score on this defense. But he shuts it down, and he's just been great. You know, he was one of those guys that got a lot of buzz all off season long. R. Mason Thomas said he was going to be the breakout defensive end. He's going to have 5.5 sacks on the year, and he's just performing. He's showed up every single week, and he's one of Oklahoma's best defensive players. And I don't think going into the season, we were expecting that. I mean, everybody was thinking, okay, maybe this is going to be a guy that breaks out this year, but I don't think anybody was going to sit there and consider that Taylor Wein could be Oklahoma's best defensive player. That, to me, or one of their best defensive players, but he's playing like one of their best defensive players. He's got 10.5 tackles for loss right now. That leads the Oklahoma Sooners. He's got 3.5 sacks. That's second on the team, only behind R. Mason Thomas. So, I mean, he's putting together a fantastic season. For reference, Ethan Downs last year had 9 tackles for loss and 3 sacks, opposite of R. Mason Thomas. That just goes to show what a difference having another dynamic player at defensive end across from your already dynamic player in R. Mason Thomas, what that can do for you. And that's, I'm not trying to throw a shot at Ethan Downs or downplay what he did, but when we thought about that this defense could be better than what it was last year, it was a lot of projection. I'll be honest. We were projecting out a little bit that the defense was going to be better because you were expecting steps from Jaden Jaxson, a better year from Dominic Williams, and you were hoping for a breakout from David Stone. And then you were expecting another big year from Grayson Halton, and you're getting all that, but you're getting the breakout seasons from David Stone, from Taylor Wein, and that makes your defensive line legitimately 8 guys deep because you can play R. Mason Thomas, Marvin Jones Jr., Taylor Wein, Adepoju Adebaware. You can play Danny Okoye. I mean, that gives you 9 guys. And then you consider the 4 defensive tackles. And if you want to throw Marcus Strong in there because the dude just makes plays when he's on the field, you got 10 guys that you can rotate along your defensive line. And that's absolutely huge. But Taylor Wein, I mean, he's playing like one of the best defensive ends in college football. And I don't feel like that's hyperbole, because every time he's out on the field in every single game, he's making plays for this team. And it creates a lot of optimism that, okay, even though you're going to lose R. Mason Thomas to the NFL draft, where he's probably going to be a top 50 pick, if not a first round draft pick in 2026, you still feel pretty good about your defensive end group led by Taylor Wein. And what's amazing about that is, okay, we were hoping that it'd be Adepoju Adebaware or Danny Okoye breaking out this year, but with Taylor Wein taking on so much responsibility, you're still allowing for the development of PJ and for Danny, and they could have a breakout over the final 5 games of the year. Danny Okoye is coming on strong. PJ, they're coming on strong. They're having really good games. They both had good games against South Carolina, and I think they're going to continue to get more playing time as the season goes along. So the future is still very, very bright at defensive end. The other one on defense, Kendall Daniels. I just remember hearing so much talk from Oklahoma State fans about how, oh, you're going to regret picking him up. He's not going to perform. He's not going to have the season that you hope he's going to have. And he's been better than advertised. Like, he's been better than what you could have hoped, because all of the narratives and all the talk about him was that he just wasn't going to give a good effort. Well, he's one of Oklahoma's best defensive players, and he was one of Oklahoma's best defensive players against South Carolina. I think he was second on the team in tackles, had 2 tackles for loss, 2 big tackles for loss, several big stops on 3rd or 4th down. He's playing really good football right now. He is an X factor for this defense because of his size and his athleticism and his physicality. When he brings it like that, it just fires everybody up. It's just, again, another physical freak that you have on your defense, and somebody that is going to continue to have a really good season for the Oklahoma Sooners. Offensively, it starts with Tory Blaylock for me. That's the breakout player on offense. Yeah, you've had good performances from other players like, Xavier Robinson was good this Saturday. You've had good performances from John Mateer, but you expect John Mateer to have good performances. You're paying him to have good performances. And he was one of the more highly thought of quarterbacks coming out of the transfer portal. You expect some of these things. Well, Tory Blaylock was the unexpected because you bring in Jaden Ott, you expect him to be your bell cow. That has fizzled out. It's not working. After that, you thought Javonte Barnes. Well, he's not healthy, according to the coaching staff. I don't know if that's the case or if they've got other plans for him that don't involve playing in 2025. And then it was Taylor Tatum. Okay, well, he's been banged up. Now, he did get into the game on Saturday, didn't look super confident when he ran it. Of course, he's playing with the backups. So I'll be curious to see what he looks like moving forward. Got to get him in the game, got to get him into a rhythm a little bit because he is a dynamic player. But Tory Blaylock has been awesome. Every time he's gotten the football, Oklahoma very rarely has a negative play. Almost every time it's a positive play, whether it's 2 to 3 yards or like we saw on Saturday, 18 yards on a pair of runs in the first quarter. The guy is just getting better and better with the more work that he's getting. And I think what we saw on Saturday was a more confident Tory Blaylock because he went into that game knowing he was the guy and really believing that he was the guy. Because I think for a true freshman, you're just trying to go out there and maybe not make mistakes. You're trying to go out there and just simply do your job and not try to do anything extra. You just want to keep moving the ball forward. And we were getting that from him. We were getting the dirty yards from Tory Blaylock, and he was putting those together, and he was playing strong, competitive football and just grinding stuff out. Not necessarily looking to make guys miss in the open field, not necessarily looking to break a big play, but just getting what he could. Well, we saw this Saturday that he's capable of way more than that. And he's gotten more confident as the season has gone along that, hey, if I can bounce this to the outside. I've got the speed. I've got the agility to do that. I can make that guy miss in the open field. I can run through some of these arm tackles and pick up extra yards. I don't have to just bowl guys over. I can try to make guys miss. And he did a lot of that. Against South Carolina, he had a number of missed tackles forced. And I'm going to Pro Football Focus right now to take a look at it because it was an impressive effort. They only credited him with 2 missed tackles forced, but I'm sure it was more than that. He had 3 runs of more than 10 yards, 2 for more than 15 yards. He averaged 2.42 yards after contact in the game, which is a solid number. And he's just going to continue to get better and better as the season goes along. Elsewhere on offense, Isaiah Sategna. And I bring Isaiah Sategna up simply because of all of the transfer portal additions, and with Deion Burks coming back, he was kind of the guy that was, I don't want to say lost in the shuffle, but not talked about as much. But the coaching staff talked about him. They talked about how consistent he was and how dynamic he was with the ball, and we're seeing that. I remember talking to a guy, he writes for me over at Sooners Wire, but also covers the Arkansas Razorbacks, and when he put in his season prediction, I kind of asked him, I was like, well, what's up with this? And I think he had Oklahoma going 8-4, 7-5 or something like that. He's like, I have a hard time believing in a wide receiver core that features Isaiah Sategna because he played at Arkansas last year and was just kind of okay. Well, he's been better than you could have expected. He's your leading receiver. He's been dynamic with the football. He's made plays in the open field when he's gotten the opportunity. Right now, he's got 37 catches for 493 yards and 4 touchdowns. That's a great start to the season. I mean, he's on pace to, be around, 800-900 yards, almost 1,000 yards this season. And if he can continue doing what he's doing, it's going to make life really, really difficult for opposing defenses. And hopefully at some point it opens things up down the field for guys like Deion Burks, Javonte Gibson, Jaren Kanak. So those are the breakout players through the first half plus of the season. Got to see more out of Deion Burks. I need to see a better second half of the season from him. Got to see the offensive line continue to improve and build on what they did on Saturday against South Carolina. If they can continue building on that and they can have another good week against an Ole Miss team that gave up over 200 yards of rushing to Georgia this past weekend, then you'll feel good about the direction that they're heading. And yeah, man, I want to see the Xavier Robinson thing continue. He was really good this past week. I think he's got a chance to be really good moving forward. Coming up, we're going to talk about Trinidad Chambliss and how Oklahoma might look to defend him. We'll do that coming up here on Locked On Sooners. College football is back, and we couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout, and that's why we like to use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I just pulled up the Game Time app, and I'm looking over there at the Oklahoma versus Ole Miss game, and I'm seeing tickets as low as $82 in some sections. If I'm looking in the lower bowl, I mean, under $200, $142, $125, a lot of really nicely priced tickets for this weekend. And so if you're trying to go see Oklahoma and Ole Miss, which is going to be a top 15 matchup, you got to go check out Game Time. Go download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first, $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket. Go download Game Time today. Once again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So the Oklahoma Sooners are traveling to Trinidad. Well, really, Trinidad's traveling to Norman this week. And they're going to be going up against one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC. This is a guy that currently ranks in the top 2 or 3 in most of these statistical categories. He's just been really good. Has 8 touchdown passes, just 1 interception so far. Right now he is, where is he at? He's 10th in the SEC in passing yards. But remember, he only took over like after the first couple of games for Austin Simmons, but he's been really good. He's not turning the ball over. He's been dynamic with the ball in his hands. He's rushing the ball well. He's thrown for an average of 221 yards per game. He's averaging 9.3 yards per attempt, which leads the SEC among qualified passers. That means he's chucking the ball downfield. He's really working to get the ball down the field. And he is only completing 62.7% of his passes, which ranks 13th in the SEC. Surprisingly, I mean, behind Jaxson Arnold and just in front of Taylor Green, Marcel Reed, and Arch Manning, who is last in the SEC in completion percentage. That's kind of shocking. But as a rusher, he's also been really good. He is, where is it at? I had it. Sorry, I lost it. But he's been a dynamic runner. He's 21st in the SEC in rushing yards with 323, averaging 4.6 yards per carry with 5 touchdowns. I mean, that's better than Jamarian Miller at Alabama. That's better than, Gunnar Stockton, who just ran all over Ole Miss. Jaxson Arnold and Marcel Reed, who are 2 really good runners. So Trinidad, he's been a really good dynamic dual threat quarterback. Where should Oklahoma look to beat him and look to defend him? So you go look at what he's done so far, and statistically, it doesn't look like he has a ton of weaknesses. If he's kept clean, he's completing 64.8% of his passes. Under pressure, completing just 50% of his passes, which, hey, under pressure, that's still not a bad rate. 1 touchdown, no interceptions, averaging 10.8 yards per attempt. That's actually pretty good when under pressure. If he's not blitzed, he's completing 63.8% of his passes. When he's blitzed, 60.7% of his passes. His yards per attempt actually go up when he's blitzed, and probably because he's scrambling outside the pocket and he's finding stuff down the field. His average time to throw actually goes up when he's under pressure, 3.58, because again, scrambling around. And it goes up when he's blitzed, 2.77, which is better than 2.65 when he's not blitzed. So he's a dude that tries to get the ball out quick, When he's kept clean, his time to throw is 2.48 seconds, which anything under 3 is pretty good. Anything under 2.5 is really quick. And that's going to be, I think, the way Lane tries to attack Oklahoma's defense. Get the ball out fast. Don't let Trinidad be under a lot of pressure. And so it's going to be up to Brent Venables and the staff to figure out ways to make him hold it a tick longer so they can try and get their pressure. In whether it's play action or not, he's pretty good. I mean, he completes about the same amount of passes, and the yards per attempt are about the same, whether it's play action or no play action. Now, he has no touchdown passes when it's play action and 1 interception. Take that for what it's worth. They don't use a lot of screen games. There's only been screens on 13 of his 181 dropbacks. So you might see a little bit more screen as Lane Kiffin tries to take advantage of a aggressive defense that Oklahoma brings to the table. Now, here's where I think it gets really interesting for Trinidad Chambliss. When you look at passing depth, which Pro Football Focus does a really good job at breaking this down, he struggles a little bit more in the intermediate area of the field. From 10 yards to 19 yards down the field, he's only completing 46.3% of his passes. More than 20 yards down the field, 61%. Less than or 0 to 9 yards down the field, 73.2. Behind the line of scrimmage, 91.2% of his passes. So under 10 yards, above 20 yards, he's been pretty efficient. It's that 10 to 19 yards where he seemed to struggle the most. And then let's break it down even further. If Oklahoma really wants to have success against him, try to make him go to the middle of the field or to his left, because statistically, that's where he's been at his weakest. The Pro Football Focus, again, breaking down the numbers for us. When he's throwing deep center or deep left, he's completing just 57.1% of his passes. When he's throwing deep right, that skyrockets up to 71.4%. Now, it's very minor differences. He's 4 of 7 throwing deep center, 4 of 7 throwing deep left, 5 of 7 throwing deep right. So again, not seeing it as well that way. Now, if we look at the intermediate part of the field, the area where he seems to struggle the most, again, that's 10 to 19 yards down the field. When he's throwing right, he's 3 of 6 for 50 or for 47 yards. When he's throwing down the middle, 13 to 26 for 50% completion percentage, 233, 2 touchdowns. When he's throwing left, he's just 3 of 9. He does not want to throw outside the bound or outside the hash marks. So he's wanting to go down the middle of the field. That's where it seems like he's the most comfortable throwing the ball, or where he's been able to find the most success consistently in the intermediate part of the field. When he's throwing short, he's throwing, again, short middle or short right. When he doesn't throw short left very much, but he has completed 100% of his passes throwing short left. And then behind the line of scrimmage, that's where he'll go left more, is when they're throwing the ball behind the line of scrimmage. He has 10 passing attempts versus behind the line of scrimmage to the right, where he has just 5. But again, a dude that wants to go up the middle, but that's where Oklahoma's strength lies, is up the middle of the field. Whether it's their defensive line, their linebackers, their safeties, that's where their strength is. If they've had any kind of weakness so far defensively this year, it's been at cornerback on the outside. I imagine that Lane Kiffin's going to try to test that a little bit, and Trinidad's going to try and test that. They've got some dynamic wide receivers out there. They'll want to see if they can create some big plays throwing to the outside, throwing outside the hash marks, and seeing if Oklahoma can cover them up. That's what I would do, because even though he's more apt to throw it to the middle of the field, that's the most dangerous area to throw it to. Now, they'll try to use some misdirection to open up some more holes to allow him some easier, pitches and catches, but that's not an area that you want to necessarily try Oklahoma, because you've got Kip Lewis, who's really good at baiting you into an interception. You've got Peyton Bowen that's due for an interception. Robert Spears-Jennings that's due for a turnover. Hasn't had one yet this year. So your defense, up the middle of the field, that's where it's strongest. So look for Lane Kiffin and Trinidad Chambliss to try and attack the perimeter, which isn't necessarily easy to do against Oklahoma because of their team speed, but they'll try to attack the perimeter, try to attack downfield, and see if they can create some big plays. And they will. They'll hit a big play or two. You just can't let it be a regular occurrence. And if they do hit a big play, you got to tackle. You can't let that big play turn into a touchdown. You got to rally to the football. This is going to be one of those weeks where tackling is going to be of the utmost importance. You know, Trinidad, he's a great runner, and you've seen multiple really good runners so far this season, whether it's Bryce Underwood or Jaxson Arnold or Arch Manning or Lenora Sellers. And you've done a really good job containing them for the most part. Arch Manning, Lenora Sellers gave you a little bit more trouble. They're bigger. They're more physical runners. Trinidad, he's fast. He's fast. But he's only 6 foot, like 190, 200 pounds. So you're going to have a better opportunity that if you do get both hands on him and you do try to wrap him up, a better opportunity to bring him to the ground than you did against Lenora Sellers. So play fundamental football, wrap him up, keep him contained in the pocket. Don't let him escape and use his speed. And you'll have a great opportunity to have a good defensive performance, which you're going to have to. You're going to have a really good defensive performance to win this game and to continue to win football games. And that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. You can follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Go check out his channel, Unfair Sports, for more Oklahoma Sooners and college football coverage. You can follow me at John 9 Williams and read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. The show is at Locked On Sooners on all of your favorite social media platforms. But until next time, for my guy Jay Smith, I'm John Williams. We'll talk to you then. Boomer Sooner!